Welcome, everyone, back to the Walking with Jaguars podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Sarah Connolly. She is an ayahuasca dietara. She is a space holder. She is a transformation guide and the host of the Big Little Soul podcast. Um, Thanks for coming on. I'm excited for the conversation. Is there anything you would add to the labels of identities that you give yourself?
Mm, Honestly, I've just been really gravitating more towards just being a forever student of this path. I recognize so many of those labels are exactly that. They're just labels. They're just part of the identity and what it likes to cling to. And I'm very much so in a chapter right now where I'm inviting myself to let go of those. And yeah, I feel very honored to be here. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah, just before coming on today, I just found myself just in prayer, just really dropping into allowing whatever is meant to come through. And you had you had asked me just before we came on, do you want to know the questions that I'm going to ask you today? And I noticed that there was that piece of the identity that was like, yep, I absolutely want to know everything that you're going to ask me so that I can prepare. And that's just the invitation that I'm inviting myself into right now, is to meet that edge of always wanting to be prepared and have the answers and to show up as the quote unquote teacher. And the more I walk this path, the more I recognize that no, I'm just a student and I'm learning. And so my invitation for myself today and for those listening is to just show up with curiosity and to soften into that space of allowing the stories to dissolve, allowing my own beliefs to be challenged, and just trusting that whatever is meant to flow through in this conversation is going to.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was like when I asked you, do you want to know the questions or do you trust in what's going to come through? And you're like, I trust. I was like, good answer. Like that's the real shit. Like it's so easy to come with like all these like logical kind of like rational answers, but like just showing up
Mhm.
and that's the real shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The what you said then about the like the tags and labels is like kind of
Mhm.
funny. I'm currently taking Spanish classes,
Mhm.
and when you talk about your profession, it's always uh it's like true, and then there's things where it's like temporary, like I'm happy
Mm.
temporarily, but like
Mhm.
I am this profession. And as like
Mm.
someone who's just like walked this path and followed my curiosities, like I've done a million different things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's a million labels. It like almost
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to use any of them.
Yeah. 100%. I remember, I don't know if you were on this call with Ryan, who for those listening is kind of a shared mentor of both of us, or has been for some time for both you and I. I remember when he shared, if you've found your purpose, you're lost. And I remember being so triggered by that initially, and now it just makes so much more. I don't even want to say it makes more sense, because I feel like even that statement, this is why I find language so limiting. It's like, oh, it makes sense. It's like, oh no, that's just the mind making sense of it, right? But it just, I can feel it at a different level, at a different depth than I did before. And it's like, oh yeah, like if we have constructed this idea of like, oh, I know what my purpose is, we're just living in the mind. Because if we're actually allowing ourselves to be a student of this path, we are ever evolving and that purpose is ever evolving. And so the identities are just, they're just so transient when we get to that state of being.
Yeah, and I see that so often, where
Mm.
like you have, and like in myself too, I'll have a calling to go somewhere, to like change locations, to change careers, to do all these things. And you feel this like you can see the path, but it's
Mhm.
like from an outside perspective. And then
Yeah.
once you land on it, it's like, fuck, where did it go? And it's like, because you're actually just on it and like you can't help but live in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
And like everything just comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a beautiful reminder too, because it is so easy to get lost when we're in it, but to be able to zoom out and rediscover that perspective and to trust in the soul and in those potentials that are awaiting us. It it shifts everything, how you approach everything in life.
Mhm. Oh,
Mm. Mhm.
all right. I think to start us off, I think it'd be fun if the listeners or viewers had an opportunity to learn more about you. And I have loved hearing pieces of your story. It seems like
Mhm.
you've had a pretty radical awakening over the last 5 years. And I was wondering if you could give the listeners some background into who you were and
Mhm.
who you've become.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share this story. Man, yeah, it feels like I've lived a thousand lifetimes, honestly, reflecting back on who I was. It quite literally feels like it was in a different lifetime. Like it almost feels like I'm like thinking about a dream, which I mean, there's so much to that statement in and of itself. But so the past 5 years has really been me recognizing how I was living out my life simply as a construct of my identity. So before, who I was before was someone who was really just living in the system and living in a way that I thought I was becoming successful in the way that I had been taught and told how to curate success. So I'll just rewind a little bit. When I was growing up, um, I I had the privilege of experiencing a lot of death, watching a lot of my loved ones die, watching a lot of my loved ones go through chronic and terminal illness, addiction, suicidal ideation, mental health issues. And so, as that younger version of myself, I begun to have this desire to help people heal because as a young child and individual, I watched so many people suffer. And so there was this savior template, if you will, that was building inside of me that wanted to really save people and no longer have to witness that death and dying and suffering. And so I went down the medical route. I went to university doing all of my pre-med requirements, thinking I was going to become a doctor. And that was really all I knew at the time. I didn't have a greater awareness to know that there was other possibilities to get into a path where A, my healing was focused on myself first and foremost, and B, then I could share that with others. So I went down the medical route. I got into year 4 of pre-med at university, and I kind of I would say I had like maybe a little mini awakening then where I was starting to have some aha moments about like why do I want this? Why do I want this two-letter prefix in front of my name? Why am I chasing this path of helping others? And so I started to loosely explore other options. And in that time, I recognized like, really, does it feel really in alignment for me to now go to med school? And I didn't want to just be a general practitioner. Like seeing people with stuffy noses and sore throats every day was not something that really lit my soul on fire. So I wanted to do something like cool to my identity. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a surgeon. I'll specialize in something. But then when I really sat with the reality of that, it was like, okay, well, you're going to finish this bachelor's degree and then you're going to go into med school and to specialize, it's going to be 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 or 12 more years of school. And I was already feeling the impact of just go, 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 do, striving for this external identification of success. And so that led me to exploring other options, which then led me to pursuing a career as an ultrasound tech. So that was another 2.5 years of specialization instead of 12. So that felt more manageable for me at the time. And so I got into this career as an ultrasound tech. And for the first 2 years, I worked in a private clinic. And while I was working in a private clinic, especially as a new grad and a brand new tech, I was just absolutely blindsided by how the industry operated. And I mean, I can only speak from my own personal experience, but working as a tech in a private clinic, like you have your own patient workload for the day and you're just kind of thrown to the wolves. as a new grad. It's like, okay, you have half an hour to do this exam, 15 minutes to do this exam, 45 minutes to do this exam. And I just felt like it was more about how many people I could get through the door in a day than actual true patient care. And I was working 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes, and most of my shifts, I hardly had a lunch break. I mean, I was definitely a perfectionist, have always been operating under a more perfectionistic ideal. So I was very meticulous about how I did things. So I took longer than the average person to do an exam, to write up my report, to present to the radiologist. And I was working through my lunch breaks. I was working overtime. I was just go, go, go. And at the same time, my identity thought it would be a fantastic idea to pursue bodybuilding in a competitive way. And so I was also getting up at 4 a.m., going to the gym, doing cardio before work, going to work, and then going back to the gym to lift weights because that was how I was gaining some sort of validation for everything that I was doing. And so 2 years into that, I was completely mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually burnt out. So I ended up taking a stress leave from work. And I had just I think that was around the time that I had just finished doing my first and second competition. And so I was dealing with gut issues, I was dealing with anxiety, bouts of depression. I was really like I felt in many ways like a failure. I remember just thinking like, oh my God, I went to university for 7.5 years. I poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into this education and I'm failing. Like I'm not cut out for this. I'm just not good at this. I'm not equipped to work in this industry. And when I thought about the potential of me being in that industry until I was 60, 65, 70 years old, to do what society tells you to do and like make it until you have a home and a family and all these things. I was like, I'm not even going to be able to get to the point where I have a family at this rate. Like, I am going to pass away, like,
Mhm.
literally. And so that led me on what I would call kind of like my first awakening process where I was really forced to go on a journey within to start healing my own physical and mental health. And so I started working with a functional health specialist, and he was one of the first people in my life who really kind of shook me in the sense that on our first call, I will never forget this. He said, you can follow my detox protocol. You can take all the supplements that I'm going to give you. You can follow this protocol to a T, which I know that you will because I see your perfectionist identity and I see how you operate. But if you don't actually address what is going on in here, and to those who are just listening, not watching, I'm just making reference to my heart and to my mind. He said, you will just relapse time and time again. What I was dealing with was SIBO, which for those listening is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And I had androgen dominance and I was in amenorrhea. So I had no menstrual cycle because I was so lean and I was pushing myself so hard physically and mentally, and my body was just shutting down. Like, I remember I would like brush my hair or like shower and I was like pulling chunks of hair out. I was like, I had the classic like white film on my tongue, which is indicative of a lot of like yeast overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth. I was tired all the time. Like, I kid you not, I could lay down on a rock at any time in the day and I could fall asleep. I was just beyond the point of exhaustion. And so I started to really go within. And that was kind of when I found meditation and breath work and journaling. And as part of my protocol for physical healing during this time, taking a step away from bodybuilding, I was actually not allowed to step foot in the gym, which was like the biggest. I remember having so much anxiety and just so much panic come up when Vince, my functional health coach, said, like, you cannot lift a weight for at least 3 months. Like, I do not want you on that treadmill doing sprints. I do not want you lifting weights. You're allowed to walk. You're allowed to do yoga. You are allowed to do some like very, very, very light swimming, but otherwise, you're not allowed to be in the gym. Your body needs to rest. And so during that time, as I started to step away from everything that I had busied myself with, of course, then things start to come up because there was no other outlet and no other mask and no other addiction or form of numbing or suppression that I had been utilizing for so long to really just shove my emotions down. Like my story at the time was, oh yeah, like I go to the gym to help reduce my stress. No, no, I was going to the gym to actually avoid everything that was coming up in me. And so during that period, which ended up being a little over a year that I worked with Vince, but about a year and a half that it took me to even get some semblance of normalcy with my body again, then I really started to recognize the true connection, the gut brain connection, the connection with our emotions and everything that is manifested in our body. All of these symptoms of dis-ease and disorder that I was also seeing in my patients on the ultrasound table, I was just gaining such a greater awareness of what was happening in my own body. And so I started studying the chakra system and the energetics of healing and how trauma manifests in the body. And so when I finally did actually make the decision to go back to work as a tech, and I mean, that was really rooted in the fear of failure and all of these judgments and projections that people from a place of love, like my mother and my family, were just projecting their own limiting beliefs on me. Like, oh my goodness, you went to school for this long and spent this much money and you're just going to quit. And so I decided to give it one more shot. So I got a job at the hospital and I found a little bit more of a work life balance there. I started working a point seven. So I was working 7 days on, 7 days off. So I was really able to still stay focused on my own personal practices while I was working. And that was really the time that all of the work I had done on myself and this new awareness that I had curated in everything that I had studied from a more holistic healing perspective, it just started to illuminate everything for me that was happening in healthcare. And I use even the term healthcare so loosely because I really believe that the care is lacking entirely in that industry.
I would say potentially the health is too.
Touche, touche. Yeah. It's more like sickness, dependence, perpetuation industry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
accurate.
So, as I was working as a tech, I mean, one of the greatest gifts of being an ultrasound tech for those who have never had an ultrasound or don't really know what goes hand in hand with that career is that I was able to spend so much time with each patient. Like the shortest ultrasound exam is usually about 15 minutes for like kind of lumps and bumps kind of thing. But a lot of the work that I was doing in the hospital, we were in diagnostic and interventional imaging. So I was doing a lot of procedures as well. So biopsies and helping with surgeries. And so I was with patients sometimes for over an hour, over 2 hours, and people would just start opening up about their past, about themselves, about their lives. And all of these pieces and all of the dots just started connecting and I started to see, wow, yeah, like anger is stored in the liver. And so no wonder this person who's telling me their life story that has this very tangible foundation of so much suppressed anger and rage is manifesting a liver dis-ease. And to see how the system approaches all of these ailments that people come and present with, it's just like, okay, well, let's give you this pharmaceutical or let's just remove the organ because that makes the most sense. Like let's take this very integral aspect of your physical human body and let's just take it out because it's clearly not operating in the right way.
It's the
Yeah,
problem.
it's the
Yeah.
problem. There's nothing else
Uh-huh.
under here. That's just the problem. And so the more my awareness built and the more I studied and the more I did the work to heal my own body and started working at the time I was microdosing for my own anxiety and depression, starting to really just open my mind in so many ways that it had never been opened before. I just started to feel so out of alignment working in that industry and the soul pings were really starting to come through at that time. Like, okay, this was meant to be part of your past so you could see this, but there's more for you. And there was still so much fear in me, so I still kept pursuing it. And then came the pandemic, and I again had the gift of working in the hospital at that time. And the level of cognitive dissonance that I witnessed and experienced was just like it was to such a degree that I started to question my own sanity because I was witnessing. I mean, at this point, I had been a tech for 5.5 years because I worked for the hospital for 3 years. So I'd been a tech for 5.5 years, and I had never seen that many DVTs, which are blood clots, especially in young people. This was after the release of the vax. DVTs, miscarriages, random tumors, like just things that had no other rhyme or reason to them. And for me, I was just, oh, like this is interesting. At first, there was just this curiosity in me, like, oh, this is an interesting possible, like, I know that correlation does not equal causation. However, this is very interesting. And as time went on, and I saw more and more and experienced more and more for myself, I was just like, okay, one of these things does not fit the other. And nobody, I mean, not even just during the pandemic, but in health care as a whole in the industry, nobody asks patients what their stress levels are like, what their family is like, what their relationships are like, what their childhood was like, what their diet is like, like all of these things that are actually the underlying factors behind so much of these diseases and illnesses. It's just like totally shelved and put to the side and negated. And then bring in the pandemic and all of the politics of that, and then the vaccine mandates. And I just witnessed patients being treated in such a way that I'd never witnessed before. And for myself as a healthcare professional, I was always under the understanding like we're here to help people. We're not here to judge the patient on our table. We're not here to say like for example somebody comes into the ER with a drug overdose and then they're needing to be treated for like their liver and their kidneys that are shutting down. We as a healthcare professional, we had never had the right to be like, "Oh, well, I don't agree with the use of drugs, so I'm actually not going to treat you." But then something shifted during the pandemic where all of a sudden, suddenly, healthcare professionals had this self proclaimed right to project their own beliefs onto patients and to say, actually, we're not going to treat you, or you're going to wait in the waiting room longer because you don't have this specific health product that we have mandated that you get to come in here to get treatment. And to be also spoken to in the way that I was spoken to by some of the doctors and the radiologists for the decision that I had made for my own body, it just really affirmed for me the knowing that I was holding for so long that I was no longer meant to be in that career and be operating in life as a whole in this way. And it got to the point where I think my soul was just trying to really communicate with me to such a degree that I would put my ultrasound probe down on people and I would almost have this like it was like a premonition out of body experience where I would all of a sudden like 3D zoom out and see myself on the ultrasound table as a patient. And for me, that was my soul communicating to me, like, hey, this is a potential self that exists if you continue to walk this path. And so
Man, that's crazy.
yeah.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. That's just
Mm,
like that's such an amazing insight to pull from that like visionary state.
yeah. It was I mean, it was very confronting to say the least, but it was also it also affirmed what I had felt so many other times previously in my life, this connection to soul and this ability to tap into the unseen realms and to have premonitions and to have extrasensorial perception that I had very much so suppressed for so many years of my life because I thought that I was just crazy. Right. And so
Mhm.
that was the time when I really started listening. And when we as healthcare workers were given the mandate that basically you get to get the vaccine or you can no longer work, it was just a non-negotiable decision for me. It was a full body no. And so I left work and I was put on what they called an unpaid leave of absence with an undetermined end date. And so I was just kind of off work and in this state of, okay, like, what the heck do I now do with my life? And then very shortly after that, Canada announced that they were going to close their borders and that you could not travel into or out of the country if you did not also have a vaccine passport. And I remember hearing that announcement and something just shifted in me and it was just like the message was this, like, this is your time. Like, go explore, go find out what else is available to you. And so in the matter of about 3 weeks, I basically sold everything that I did not see as a necessity. I gave my landlord less than a month's notice. I was like, "I'm leaving. I don't know where I'm going, but just so you know, I'm not gonna be here next month." And I I ended up shipping my car to Las Vegas, which is actually hilarious that that was the place that I decided to ship my car to. It was just like the cheapest and quickest place to ship my car where I could get a one-way ticket that could, like, I could just get all of that in such a short period of time, which it just felt right for me. So I shipped my car to Vegas. I flew to Las Vegas, and I had a friend who was actually living in Nevada at the time. Her and her husband were from Canada and were living down there. Her husband was there on a work visa, and so there was this piece in me that was like, "Oh my gosh, like I need some aspect of safety. Like I need something down there to let me know that I'm gonna be okay." And so she had graciously reached out to me and been like, "Hey, why don't you just come stay with us for a little bit? Just land here, get grounded here, figure shit out, and you have a roof over your head." So just in the hilarious way that this existence works. I got there and started living with them and just kind of trying to get some sort of semblance of what the heck I was going to do in the US of A for God knows how long. And then her husband actually ended up losing his job and he was on a work visa. So when you lose your job on a work visa, you have, at least in the States, you have 30 days to evacuate the country. And so I had literally just landed and like planted my feet in the soil there. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, now we're leaving. And to me, I mean, reflecting back on that, the message from my soul was like, no, no, like you need to learn how to exist without all of these external things that you have sourced for safety and security. And you need to do this chapter by yourself. And so then commenced 6 months of me living in my car, living under the roofs of beautiful, beautiful, very kind, generous souls who took me in through Couchsurfer and just through meeting people and interactions. And I traveled for the first October, November, December, for the first 3 months. I just basically drove around and hiked around the states. I remember one of those weeks I spent in Death Valley in California. And that week was the first time in maybe ever since I had gotten a cell phone and just gotten so immersed into this society as a whole that I had actually spent in silence and away from my phone. I mean, I didn't even have cell service for most of that week that I was in Death Valley. And so I spent a week just walking barefoot in the desert, just with my thoughts, with my emotions, with all of the stories, with everything that was surfacing in my being, and just started to actually get to know myself at a level of soul. And so, fast forward a little bit, I got accepted into a training in Sedona, Arizona, that was being facilitated by a woman I had followed for quite a while on social media, who was hosting what she calls a shamanic and indigenous based kind of healing practice modalities training, where she included breathwork facilitation training, and the whole premise of all of the teachings was shamanism and really how to come back to the teachings of the earth, the plants, and the spirit in all things. And so I found myself in Sedona that January. And that was 2.5 weeks of basically living at this woman's house and learning how to use energetic practices and instruments, drums and rattles and your voice, and how to really attune to the wisdom of the earth and to so many of the teachings that our ancestors and elders have held for so long that have just been lost in our society. And we did land journeys and medicine wheels and spent time just on the land of Sedona, which itself is just so powerful. And of course, in those 2.5 weeks, as we're learning all of this and practicing on each other too, that was like a dark night of the soul in itself. It was like I was just plummeted into a new depth of self discovery where all of these things that had begun to bubble to the surface were now like really fully like in front of my face. And during that training, I met some really, really, really incredible souls. And one of those individuals ended up basically leading me to my first ever psychedelic experience, which took place, I think, about a month or so after we finished those trainings. And that journey, it was a psilocybin journey, that journey just opened a door for me. It was just after all of the years that I had spent leading up to that, doing my own personal physical and mental healing through breath work and sound healing and meditation and everything, that 5 hour experience felt like it helped me heal and embody and see things within myself and in the world that the entirety of my life had never shown me. And so that began my journey of connecting with plant medicines and really inviting myself to return to the wisdom of the earth. And so I returned to Canada in April of that year, and I just decided that no matter what, I'm not going back to not only working for healthcare, but I'm not going back to working for the system. I will literally do anything and everything that it takes to just pursue whatever this path is now and whatever I am meant to do and however I'm meant to be of service. And so I just continued to do my own personal journeys with plant medicine, doing the work on myself. And the path just started to kind of unfold for me, and the opportunities to connect with individuals who were gravitating to who I then had become. And just noticing the difference in who I was. Like the amount of times somebody said to me, like, you're not even the same person. I was like, "Oh, I would hope not." Like, after everything that has unfolded, I would hope not.
That's actually what I was aiming for, funny enough.
Right. And since then, it's really just been, again, just a continual path of self-discovery and then just sharing what I've been learning with others. I did end up doing, like, a formal trauma informed training and a lot of like psychedelic integration trainings, which interestingly enough, now I'm like unraveling the layers of all of those and how all of those are still so deeply rooted in the system. And so, yeah, I'm still on this path of discovery. But I mean, for myself now, my work is first and foremost focused on myself. But secondly, just sharing with those who come into my field about the power of healing through actually returning to the wisdom of our earth and the plants and the teachings that the indigenous and the ancients have held for so long that have been really stolen from us that we've forgotten in so many ways. And yeah.
Mhm. Amazing. Thank you. Like, there's so much to unpack there. I don't even know where to dive into.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I know for myself, like, in the beginning of like this awakening process, like, you're never going into this without new data.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we need data to create frameworks.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, correlation doesn't equal causation,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
But it's like okay, there's like a coincidence and a coincidence and another coincidence and another coincidence. And it's like, okay, this actually isn't coincidence. This is
Yeah.
coherence.
Yes.
So now I need to shift my entire worldview to like fit that new piece of the puzzle in,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's such a crazy radical experience. And it's
Mhm.
such a dying experience too.
Yeah.
You know, is just as much as it's like a learning, it's also an unlearning,
Mhm.
you know, and like shedding all of that. It's like pretty brutal, you know, like that's why we call it the work.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who walk the spiritual path in quotes
Mhm.
and do the work,
Mhm.
and it's kind of just bullshit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love about plant medicines, which I want to
Mhm.
really dive into the wonderful world of plant medicines with you,
Yeah.
is to some degree, it's Jesus take the wheel. You know what I mean? Like
The
you
wheel
can
and
do
the gas
all
pedal and the brake and the gear shift and just take the whole automobile.
uh-huh. And it's like, you know, like the breath work, it's like it's good to like feel what a relaxed nervous system feels like
Yeah.
temporarily, you know, by like expelling that energy and
Mhm.
like at least allowing emotions and stuff to move. But there comes a point where there's like a true letting go that needs to happen,
Yeah.
that very rarely can you take yourself there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's why we do ceremony,
Yeah.
you know? And like why, at least in my life, like ceremony is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And our teacher, he says the Incas, they have four laws.
Mhm.
There's family, there's community, there's work, and there's ceremony.
Mhm.
And what's the most important? And almost everyone would be like, well, it's family,
Mhm.
you know, but it's not, it's ceremony.
Yeah.
Because if you're full of depression and anxiety and confusion and chaos and sickness, you're no good for anyone,
Mhm.
you know? And that's why we come to ceremony.
Yeah.
It's to keep ourselves clean. And I love that you said, like, even though you're like a space holder for other people and a guide for other people, it's always the work on yourself first,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And to some degree, especially like as being a guide in the world of, you know, spiritual growth, you can only take someone to the resonance that you're at.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a massive problem with not only the medical system as a whole, but like especially like psychiatry,
Mhm.
where the person that you're speaking to, the therapist that you're speaking to, the counselor that you're speaking to, they do not resonate at like a very high level,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? They know the right words to say, they know the right prompts, but they can't actually take you there,
Mhm.
you know? So everyone just ends up just sitting in their stories, and then you have stories and the therapist has stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like just as like a quick kind of overview, I'm curious how you would summarize this. What is spiritual growth to you?
Mm. That's a really great question. For me, spiritual growth is acknowledging that you are and always will be a student. And I mean, to kind of extend this answer, like for myself, I definitely had a spiritual identity. When I got into spirituality, there was a part of my ego that felt very validated there. And when I started serving, I attached myself to all of these identities as a breathwork facilitator and a healer, which I really don't like that term anymore. I mean, I don't believe any of us are here to heal anyone, right? Like we are all just mirrors for one another, and to be of service in this realm is to really just hold space for others in such a way that you can reflect back to them and shine a light on the parts of them that for whatever reason they couldn't see before. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean spiritual growth to me is just it's being the student and always knowing that there's something more to learn and there's really no such thing as truth.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
Mhm,
Uh-huh.
mhm,
Okay. Tell me about the spirit of psilocybin.
mm, hmm. The spirit of psilocybin. It's interesting that you use the word coherence before, because that's really like coming up for me in this moment. The spirit of psilocybin to me is this spirit that has this. energy, this sheen on, as we might call it, that invites us back into coherence, into harmony, into connection with our soul, with the earth. And it really what psilocybin, what the spirit of psilocybin does in us is it is that light. It illuminates what we have not formerly been able to see, and it brings up the darkness and the distortions and everything that is not a frequency match to coherence and harmony and the essence of being from source, from nature, from God, from the earth.
Oh, that's it, and uh, one of the ayahuasca apprentices that I was is like in the circle. He was saying the thing about nature and the plants and the mushrooms is they have such an unobstructed lens of reality, and by going into these co-creative experiences with them, we get like this little chance to
Mhm.
just look through those glasses, and like so quickly everything changes.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, like it's interesting that you had this like calling to be a quote unquote healer,
Mhm.
for such a long time.
Mhm.
And for me, I never had that at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I was just like, I want to learn. I want to understand why reality is the way it is,
Yeah.
and it all leads to the same place,
Yeah.
and it's like the psilocybin is like, look, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I had shit to heal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something there, which I also really think is so important, is the piece of developing a co-creative relationship with the medicine. Because this is also something that I really see lacking today, and how the new age spiritual industry is it can really hinder and block us from being able to work with this medicine in the way that I see that we were meant to work with it. Is that we have basically begun to look at psilocybin and a lot of plant medicines as another fix, another outlet, and there's not a lot of talk about actually forming a relationship. Like, this is a living being. There is a spirit in this being. It is not just a pill to pop and to dose and to try to escape our anxiety, our depression, or to try to fix our mind or enlighten ourselves. This is a being that is meant to come into that coherent relationship with our own spirit and to illuminate all of the things within us that we are ready to and meant to see as we work with it, not as we use it.
Hmm. Thank you so much for bringing it up. It's so true. And sometimes I forget, like just with my own worldview, what it's like to be outside of Matt.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm,
And like the idea of working with these medicines as molecules
mhm,
versus a spirit to be in relation with is like just so drastically different,
mhm,
And like when I talk about a co creative experience, like with these spirits, they are learning from us just as much as we are learning from them,
mhm,
you know? Like there's a real tangible consciousness to
mhm.
these things,
Yeah.
you know? And that's also why I think to some degree psilocybin, it has a such a different effect than LSD,
Mhm,
where LSD will take you to a similar vibrational state,
mhm.
but it doesn't do that deep healing and that deep cleaning on you to the same degree.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like psilocybin's old.
Yeah.
Like it's really old.
Yeah.
Like what it understands about humans is like we've been doing this for since the beginning of time.
Mhm.
I don't know when that is
Yeah.
anymore, but since the beginning. Whereas LSD came around in the, 40s, 50s, and then into the 60s. Like
Mhm,
it doesn't know us that well.
mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And uh, just this piece about like returning to working with the plants too, like just everything that you spoke to there, what was really coming up as you were saying all of that is that there was actually a moment during the training that I was in Sedona where we were at the end of our container, and one of the girls that I had been training with, she asked the medicine woman that we were learning from, she said, can you recommend other indigenous uh individuals or elders or medicine men or women that we can seek to really enhance these teachings and further these trainings? And I remember our teacher looked at her and she said, go sit under a tree. And
Oh.
we all laughed and then realized how serious she was. And it was just such a profound reminder of like we're often seeking elders and mentors and gurus, and we forget that the earth's oldest elders are the plants that have been here since the beginning of time. As you said, who even knows when that actually was, but the plants have been here way longer than we have, and they've been here for every iteration of humanity and all the cycles that we've gone through, and we forget that they are there and they hold so much wisdom. And here we are looking for the next Instagram guru or the next spiritual retreat to go on to learn the things that our mind desires to learn, and we forget that the wisdom of the plants literally holds all of the key codes. At least I feel it holds all of the key codes to this existence.
For sure. And like for me personally, like everyone, like it's having guides throughout this
Mm,
journey is super important. I wouldn't be
absolutely.
who I am today without my teachers. But to some degree, like my teachers has just been pointing me in that direction of like back to the earth, back to the earth, back to the medicines, back to the
Mhm,
plants the whole time, and like there is like not to be egotistical, but like there's not that many people left for me to who are like really at a level far beyond me that I can learn a lot under, other than like literally like the curanderos and the maestros like down in the jungle.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, like, they can show me how to work with the plants even further, but it's like the plants,
Mm,
they're my teachers.
mhm,
The rain, that's my teacher. The thunder beings, the winds,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
They know.
Oh, they know. And I mean, when we really look back at ancient history and like how we as humans used to exist in relationship with the earth, and we used to attune to the elements, and we used to sit in ceremony, and we used to use the medicine of plants, and then at some point it feels like we either just lost our way so radically from that, or it was taken from us, which is something that I've really been exploring. Like, did at some point we really abuse the earth and these medicines so deeply that a lot of the true ancient wisdom was just like it basically like encapsulated itself and was like, okay, like you guys are going to have to earn coming back to this, because the way that you are treating our earth and all of these true elders and wisdom holders is no longer in alignment for the collective.
Yeah, I think that leads beautifully into something I wanted to dive into, which is the process of master plant dietas.
Mm, mhm,
And I know you just finished your first master plant dieta, so
mm,
congratulations. It's no small feat, But what you were just saying there, it like resonates with me so deeply because it has to be earned.
mhm,
You're not owed anything.
yeah,
Like, yeah, the world is the way it is, and it's like you can't play victim to it. And as much as it's difficult, it's your responsibility to walk the path.
mhm,
And it's always earned. And whenever it's not earned, that's black magic.
mm,
That's they give you the power right away and then they ask you to do something later to maintain it,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So I'd love to just hear, like, you don't have to give me specifics. You don't have
mhm,
to name the plant. I
yeah,
understand, like, the keeping the energies sacred,
mhm,
and a very wise teacher once told me, be very careful who you share your medicine with.
yes,
It's very easy to drain the
yeah,
tank. you know. But I was wondering if you'd like to share some of your experience and maybe some of like the processes that you went through during your dieta.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Um, it does feel very sacred, so I will share just what feels right for me to share at this time because I also believe that yes, we do need to be careful who we share our medicine with, and we don't continue to learn without sharing. Right? This has been something really that's at the forefront for me right now is that n- everything is energy and energy is meant to flow. And so if we are holding on to and gatekeeping our wisdom, or we are holding on to what we have learned in fear of it being distorted, or fear of judgment, or fear of people stealing it, or whatever the story is, we're also not allowing that natural flow to happen. So the more we just hold on to it, the less we're going to receive. And so as we walk this path as students, I think it's so important for us to share the wisdom and the medicine that we are developing and that we have earned so that we can continue to receive ourselves and so that we also plant those seeds that others are going to receive if they're meant to, and they're going to grow them in their garden if they focus and water them and have that attention and really attuned to the signal of whatever is being shared. And so, thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Mhm.
So yeah, Dieta was, again, it was one of those instances where it was like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I I never I didn't even know what a Dieta was until last year. And it was just something that came into my field. And initially something that really scared me if I'm being wholeheartedly honest, because it really I mean, it really invites you to let go of almost everything that we have come to know in this existence as being the things that we carve our identity out of, the things that we seek safety and security out of. And so the whole underlying theme of Dieta for me was learning how to soften. I really realized that I spent the entirety of my life learning how to be strong.
Mm.
And nobody had ever shown me or taught me or presented me with opportunities that allowed me to learn how to be soft. And so, over the course of the 4 months that I was on my first dieta, I really was invited to ask myself, where have I been showing up with an armor on? Where have I been showing up with a mask on? Where have I been showing up in this personification of I am strong, I can do it by myself, I don't need help? And so, a big part of the process for me was letting go of everything that I had really been approaching with that very masculine energy. And so for me, over the time of Dieta, that meant not working, not being of service, because I had definitely curated an identity out of being of service and being a teacher and being in that realm of helping others heal. And it was slowing down to the speed of soul. It was spending once again returning to what I had connected with in that time in the desert, in that time when I was living in my car and detaching from society. It was coming back to time in silence, time in stillness, time away from my phone. I even noticed just stimulation as a whole, but I even noticed my attachment to music, and not even necessarily bad music. Like I recognize it very shortly into my dieta that I had existed for so long with some sort of stimulation in the background, whether it was a podcast or listening to one of my mentor's teachings or just having frequencies playing or being at the gym and having my headphones in. I just realized that there was always something happening in the background. And so I spent a very large portion of my dieta not listening to music, which was very difficult for me, and not trying to gain more information and wisdom through other teachings and podcasts and resources. It was just like, okay, just be. Have you ever just learned how to just be? So that was a big piece. And I would say the other immense piece for me was coming back to revisit my relationship with my body and food.
Mhm.
And as someone who lived out a very big portion of my life from about the age of 17 to mid 20s, I was bulimic. And then when I got into competitive bodybuilding, I basically traded what would be diagnosed as like a clinical eating disorder for very disordered habits around food and my body as a whole. So, counting my calories and my macros,
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
being so focused. Like I was weighing vegetables for goodness sakes. Like,
Mhm.
just the mechanisms of control that I applied to everything in my life, but also my food and my body needing to look a certain way. And I really, prior to Dieta, I thought I had really gotten to the root of all of those. I thought I had really like healed. Again, I like parenthesize that because I don't
Mhm.
actually believe that we get to a state of actually being healed. But I really felt that I had at least gotten to a point where all of those relationships with my body, with food, that they were healthy. And then Dieta came, and I just started to notice all of these little tendencies. I remember this one moment very specifically. I was speaking with the maestra who had opened my dieta, and I was just telling her about some of the things I was noticing coming up with food, certain cravings, and I had just in passing in the conversation shared that I had frozen grapes so that I could eat grapes and eat them slowly and not eat a whole bunch of them at the time. And she just reflected back to me in such a loving way. She just said, "Do you recognize that there's still a disordered mentality there? That you, as a living, breathing human being, should not need to freeze your grapes so that you can A, eat slowly, and B, not overindulge." And so, though I had gone far beyond the bounds of formerly binging and restricting and calorie counting, there was still these pervasive habits and tendencies towards food and towards my body and the hyper criticism of myself that was bleeding into every aspect of my life. And so Dieta really helped me continue to peel back the layers. And for those of you who are not familiar with the process of dieta, when we're on dieta, we are eating very, very, very basic and clean. And so there's no salt, no sugar, no stimulants, no red meat. You're basically just eating fish, rice, limited vegetables, limited fruits. You're not using spices. And so you start to become very aware. I'll speak for myself. I start to become very aware of even just the stimulus behind spices, behind things. Like I remember prior to dieta, I would always have this elixir in the morning, which was filled with like ashwagandha and a 16 mushroom blend. And I would put like lotus and like all of these things in it. And Dieta really showed me, I mean, A, to communicate with the spirit of a plant. The whole principle behind Dieta is that we're reducing the noise. And so Dieta illuminated for me how much noise was still in my life and how much noise I was creating for myself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think the thing with food is like that's really common for everyone. And, like you were saying, like, there's kind of like the standard ways of eating, there's kind of like the disordered ways of eating, there's like the fitness relationship with
Mm.
eating. And then there's like now this like new age wellness way of eating, and it's like optimizing. And like yeah, like 16 ingredient cocktails. What's the next supplement? What's the next
Mm.
plant I can add in? You know? And like almost always the answer is actually way less,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost always the answer. I mean, in life, period,
Yep.
it's less.
Yep.
Do less, you know? Like
Mhm.
that's such a major teaching. Like you said, like even like getting rid of music,
Yeah.
you know? Like that's a hard one for
Oh my
me.
gosh.
Like I play music, I listen to music constantly, like turning all that down and just like actually sitting in silence, it's hilarious.
Mhm.
Because the brain just starts going, I'm so bored, you know?
Yeah.
And then like half an hour passes and then all these emotions are arising and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, where did all this come from? You know? And there's nowhere to diffuse the energy
Mhm.
other than to process,
Yeah.
you know?
Other than to just sit in the fire and actually be with it.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the fire. And like the process of Dieta is no joke.
Mm.
No es broma, you know?
Yeah.
Like you can't mess around. There's no cheating, you know? And that also, like, just if people are curious, like the whole no cheating of like the restrictions and
Mm.
everything, it also applies to your dreams.
Mhm.
That's the level at which they say you should have control of your
Yeah.
consciousness, you know? And it's like, okay, all day you're like, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
it, I'm not gonna do it, but you want to, you know? And then you like have a dream that night and you're like eating the
Yeah.
chocolate. You're like, no, no, I ruined it, you know?
Test
It's
failed.
such a crazy experience. Yeah, literally.
Level repeat.
Uh-huh. And I feel like, at least for me, like there's been so many times where I felt like I'm doing really good and I'm being really disciplined.
Mhm.
And then like the plants will test me in my dreams, knowing I'm gonna fail,
Mhm.
just to like keep me humble as fuck.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you gotta stay in that place
Yeah.
of humility, you know, and that place of prayer too.
Mhm.
Because like one of my biggest teachings in my last dieta was the importance of peace
Mm.
in your life,
Mm.
you know? And like you can do the dieta, you can have all the restrictions perfect,
Yeah.
you know? You can do it all perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's like, and then but I was taking my excess energy and like working all the time,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And it was like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
Peace. Peace is the
Yeah.
way. Way less.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, we've just lost touch with that principle. As you said, even now in like the health industry and spirituality, like there's always we're looking for something more and like biohacking is such a big thing right now too. And it's just biohacking to me is you're not trusting your soul. You're not trusting in the innate wisdom of your body. You're literally trying to hack your own system. And it just goes back to this same collective, I guess you could call it a pain body or a template where we're all just seeking to feel better. We're seeking the answers we want to feel better and to fix. And we're not actually asking what's beneath this thing that I'm trying to fix or remedy with the elixir, with the red light therapy, with the breath work. Like, am I doing these things to come back to presence and peace, or am I doing these things to actually escape and avoid what is actually residing at the very root of that?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and you know, like all these things have their place of
Mm-hmm.
experimentation, also
Totally.
to learn like who we are and like the things that do drive us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say like no amount of like blue light blocking glasses and reishi and valerian root at night are going to help you sleep if your mind's chaotic.
Exactly.
That's just the truth. So it's like, why is your mind chaotic?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then like now we're diving into a deep, deep well, deep, you know? It's like all the physical imbalances, the emotional imbalances, the spiritual imbalances, you know? Like where is your prayer?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
How are your relations? How's your digestion?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. for you, now that you've held multiple dietas, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your first experience on Dieta, if you're willing to share. Like, what was really what was really at the forefront during that first Dieta for you? What was the underlying theme that you were invited to really be with?
Hmm. I mean, my first dieta was like the energy of that spirit of that plan of that teacher
Mm,
really cleans the
mm,
guts and sexual
mm,
energy. And it was physical,
mm,
super physical, you know? And I think I actually mentioned this on one of the podcasts I did with Marcos or something. But like, I mean, the biggest process was like really understanding how to like utilize my sexual energy in the
mhm,
correct ways and allow that thing to flow without it leaking all over the place,
mhm,
you know? And like, as a what I was 23-year-old man who grew up with the internet,
mhm,
there was a big cleansing process that
mm,
had to take place there. And that was the biggest challenge I was coming up against. But the physical cleaning, it's like it can be pretty extreme,
mhm,
you know, as well. And like I used to get really bad eczema
mm,
on my legs, and just from like all the toxicity of my upbringing,
mm,
you know. And after that dieta, all gone, never again, you know. So like there was some serious work being done there, but there was definitely like sexual energy was the thing I really needed to dial in,
mhm.
um, leaps and bounds,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, just massive acknowledgement, just a deep bow to you for doing that work. I mean, especially as a man, like the sexual programming for men and women is so pervasive, right from we're infants in Disney and then going into social media and then the porn industry and everything. But I mean, I cannot imagine what it is like to be in the shoes of a man in today's world and to be being raised with all of these sexually focused programs and ways that grab at our attention and drive that sexual energy in a way that really pulls it out of the sacred and really attacks divine union and all of the things to have done that work and be doing that work. I mean, just the
I was gonna
biggest
say that's
acknowledgement.
not done.
No, yeah, never ending, I am sure for all of us, but it's very interesting, like, this seems to be such a a topic at the forefront. I've spoken to so many men recently who are just now becoming curious about this aspect of themselves and really noticing how much of their awareness is poured into that sexual drive and how just distorted it has become in today's society and how much that drains their energy on a day-to-day basis.
So much, so much. And like as like if you're like a man out there listening to this, you know, and you're leaking that energy on a daily, even weekly basis,
Mhm.
like you could be getting so much more out of life, you know, and like you don't even need psilocybin, you don't need ayahuasca, you don't need the plants.
Yeah.
Don't ejaculate for a year and then talk to me. Like you're a different person altogether,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that into the conversation. It's such a powerful piece, and I think, I mean, like I said, I can obviously not speak from the shoes of a man, but it's a conversation that really needs to be had. And I see the work that so many of the men in my field are doing now with this new awareness and starting to call that energy back into themselves. And it is so powerful. And as Matt said, like you are literally not the same person once you start regarding that energy as being so sacred. And again, like you can access that through so many different avenues, but Dieta is really just such a potent invitation back into that because I mean that is one of like the biggest no's, one of the biggest ways that you can break your Dieta. And so you are just invited to be in that space of just sitting in that energy and learning how to alchemize it, learning how to turn it into creative output, learning how to turn it into this energetic flow that can be used for so many other things.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And like that's in terms of like collective consciousness, is like that one is real twisted up,
Mm,
you know.
mhm,
Like you said, like even being on Dieta and, like we're taking away all of these things, and it's like not only do you not have sex, you're not meant to think about sex.
mhm,
You know what I mean? And like I'm like living with my partner and we're doing this together, and like there's so much respect in the house of like how we be around each other energetically
mhm,
because of the dieta process.
mhm.
And then at the same second I open up my phone and then the Instagram algorithm is like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And it's like, fuck me, it's like
Oh,
you cannot escape it,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, maybe I'll just like throw on some music, and it's like, yeah, and the hoes and the bitches and the this and the that, and it's like it's everywhere.
Yeah, it really is.
God, these young men, we've got fucking problems.
Mm.
Serious problems.
Mhm. But to think also, just one last piece to kind of like wrap up this portion of the discussion is like exactly that. Like it's everywhere. And in everything that you do, there is always something that is vying for that piece of your awareness. And so when you begin to learn how to control your awareness and how to bring your awareness away from those things that are trying to siphon your attention, that are trying to distort your sexual energy, that are trying to use that energy to control you, to really reap you of your life force. When you begin to call that energy back into yourself, when it is present in almost every aspect of our life, just think of the power of that. It is so immense.
hmm It's creation
Mm, mm,
itself, you know?
mhm,
Yeah. Unbelievable.
mm,
Okay, so as someone who has held space for
mhm,
people through their processes and in the medicine journeys and things like this, I'm curious what you do in terms of practices or other medicines that you work with to stay clean
mm. Yeah, beautiful question.
energetically.
So obviously, like Dieta was a massive practice of devotion to cleaning myself, but also through learning the ins and outs of Dieta, through working with the master plants. One of the biggest things that has come into my field now that I'm routinely working with are flower baths and using flower essences and plant essences to cleanse and clear my energetic field as a whole. And so, flower baths are a big part of my daily practices, weekly practices. They're also something that I incorporate into ceremonies now to help other people just cleanse and clear before and after ceremony, to help them really just protect their energetic field. Like we have so many plant allies, and the ones that we work with will be so individual for us based on where we are in our journey, but it's to just really again like connect with the spirit of those plants and call the spirit of those plants in to help us invoke those cloaks of protection and to cleanse and clear our field and to protect us in those spaces. It's such a simple practice, yet it has been so powerful for me to incorporate for myself and for the people that I work with. Mapacho has also become a massive ally for me. And working with Mapacho was also, it really invited me to readdress my relationship and my perspective of tobacco as a whole, and really see how we as a Western culture have, again, we've used and abused that plant spirit, that powerful, beautiful plant spirit, and we have created an addictive substance out of it. We have added toxins to it, and Mapacho really to me represents the divine masculine as, again, like the protector. So he comes into those spaces and he invokes that cloak of protection. He helps clean our energy. But in order to actually work with Mapacho, we have to recultivate our spirit or our relationship with tobacco. And as somebody, I myself had never smoked anything before I started getting into this work and learning how these plant spirits and essences could be used for our benefit and in this co-creative relationship way. I just had such a distorted view of what tobacco was. And so for me, learning about Mapacho and about the qualities of tobacco as a medicine and as an offering and as an aspect of ceremony, that journey in and of itself has been so powerful. And as I've worked more and more with Mapacho, he has started to ask me to share him with specific people. And so I do bring him into the ceremonial space, and I do share him with those that I feel called to share with. And that again is such a powerful practice, to not only to use the smoke to cleanse and clear our energy, but to use the smoke to cleanse and clear the energy of others, to cleanse and clear the space. And again, it's all about right relation, right? Like, it's acknowledging the spirit in this beautiful plant ally, and coming into relationship with that spirit instead of just using it or practicing with it. um
Mhm. I think one thing to add just for people is like a little bit of like context here as well. It's very easy to hear these things. I like picture myself as like 18-year-old Matt who's
mm,
like in the process of becoming a physicist and is just like rational as fuck, you know? It's very easy to write these things off,
mm,
but it really comes down to direct
yeah.
experience where you feel it immediately,
mm,
you know?
mm,
Like when I feel there's like a disturbance in the energetic fields or even like disturbance in the house,
mm,
like I'll do a plant bath and it's within 15 seconds, like,
yeah.
gone, cleared.
Yeah.
And like you do that a couple times and then it's coherence.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. um the other two practices for me are fasting and prayer. Just being in a devotional practice every day where I am praying, and I'm just cultivating my connection to self and soul, and my connection to God. And that again has been such a journey for me. I mean, I grew up Catholic and then just dissociated from religion entirely, and didn't even want to use the word God or to pray in any sort of way, shape, or form. And it's been working with the plants that has brought me back to that. It hasn't been revisiting religion or going back and reading the Bible, which, I mean, I'm starting to just get curious and explore all of these things now, but it was really working with the plants that really started to invite me back into prayer, back into connecting with God, and knowing that that exists within us and it's available to us, and there's no one way to go about it. There's no church or book that is going to create that connection within us. I just truly believe it has to be discovered. And for me, that process of discovery was working with the plants.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, they're such amazing teachers, especially there's something to attuning to the way they communicate with us where it isn't like
Mm,
language, you know? It's like sensation and emotion and insight and vision where you really begin to understand what prayer is
mhm,
through that process.
mhm.
Prayer isn't the words that you say.
No.
It's that vibration that you're at when you're in that place. And the words can like they can help us get there, but it's that vibration, that's the prayer.
Mhm.
And our teacher, he says, like, life is simple. Everyone really overcomplicates it. Life is simple. You wake up, you pray, you do your work, you help your community, you love your family, and then you pray, and then you go to bed.
Mhm.
You know.
I will never forget the ceremony in Uvita where he concluded ceremony by inviting us all to ask ourselves, what does it look like for you to step out of the ceremony space and continue to live your life as a walking prayer? That's something that I am constantly asking myself to reflect on. Like, is the way that I'm showing up right now, is is this a walking prayer? Is this something that I truly feel is in the frequency of prayer, is honoring who I am and how I'm showing up in the world and everyone that I'm interacting with? Is this honoring the medicine and the wisdom that has been shared with me by these plants, by these teachers? How am I showing up as a prayer, in divine relation and connection to all that is?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. And for me, like, it really just feels like at this point, with such an understanding of what I actually am, you know,
Mhm,
like not this body, not this human, like this spirit, this awareness,
mhm,
and it's like I am prayer.
mhm,
You know what I mean? And like my life is my prayer. And like I invite the listeners, like if you like, kind of look at your life right now and zoom out, it's like, is that prayer?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like I think how you put it was beautiful. Like, everything that's been shared with you, that wisdom, the plants, their medicine, all these, like, are you doing that justice?
Mhm.
And it's so easy with these medicines too to y- get into a relationship to some degree of like seeking peak experience
Mhm.
and keep going back to the wishing well,
Yeah.
you know? And there's like times to go deep and there's times to integrate.
Mhm.
And like now, I just get a big long list of instructions. Like I get some cleaning done for sure, but it's like you need to go and do these things. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, like for me to honor the medicine is actually for me to go and tick all these things off.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't need to go back again and be told the list. I already know it,
Mhm.
and like part of me starting this podcast was that list.
Mm.
It was like, you need to start praying to the world, like this is my prayer.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and like as Maestro says, like live your thank you, right? Like I remember being so thankful after the first ceremony and everyone just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And all he said was live your thank you. Right? Like live in such a way that you are honoring that which you have received and all that you are and all that you have been and all that you are becoming. Live your thank you.
Oh, oh,
Mm.
codes. Like that's it. You know what I mean? It's really that simple.
Mhm.
Like we could end the podcast there. I want to keep
Okay.
going, but we could.
I want to keep going too.
Yeah. Like if you take anything away, like listen to that last 10 minutes like three more times,
And thank you also for really receiving what you've received in the ceremony space and taking the responsibility for yourself to honor that and to show up in this way, to listen to those pings from your soul and to say, okay, like I have been invited to share my medicine and to speak to the world and to use technology as a means of sharing wisdom and medicine and communicating and connecting with others. It's so easy in today's day and age to just get so wrapped up in how many things are wrong with the world and the darkness and the shadow and everything and to see our phones as these awful devices and everything. But if we can just come back to that question of how do we live as this walking prayer and how do we honor what we have received? How do we show up in the way that we are really truly feeling our soul is asking us to show up in the world? That's what we're feeding with our awareness and our energy. And so that's what we are going to build. That's what we are going to cultivate in our garden. And that's really, that to me is the work. Right. So thank you for having this platform.
I feel like you just clicked something in my understanding just then
Mhm.
of I found this path literally through podcasts.
Mm, hmm.
Like the psilocybin and like the LSD had come into my life, but it was actually listening to a Graham Hancock podcast when I was like 18 years old. And it was just like my entire life dissolved in that moment. And my North Star became ayahuasca. And it was like nothing else mattered.
Mm,
And for me, as like a kid in Sydney with like no connections to the jungle,
hmm.
like this signal snuck through, and because of that, my entire life has radically changed. And I'm so happy
Yeah,
with the way my life is going right now. And there's ups and downs. It's like not everything's
of course.
perfect, but
Of
like
course.
the beautiful lessons. But yeah, I just like it really feels like, man, like 18-year-old Matt would have loved these conversations. And like I'm just here to like throw them out there.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I
Hmm.
found so many of my teachers through podcasts as well. The training that I did in Sedona was somebody that I found through a podcast. And so yeah, I mean, we're not here to save anybody. We're not here to change anybody's ideas or perspectives, but in the act of sharing the medicine and the wisdom that we have received, we plant seeds and everyone else has their own sovereign free will choice ability to water the seeds that they see fit.
Hmm. Yeah, and understand that they are sovereign.
Hmm.
you can go crazy with your life, you know? And there's part of me that I have like a funny kind of relationship with my soul to some degree, where my soul wants me to like, walk this certain way. And I can't leave. At this point, it's like if I was tried to plug myself back into the matrix, like a bus would just hit me. Like I've gone too far to go back, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but my soul wants me to like really refine my prayer,
Mm,
and like my like little identity collection that I have right now just wants to tell an amazing story with my life,
mm,
like for creator. That's
mhm.
like kind of like the way that I can kind of piece it together, where like I am going to do something epic consistently, you know?
I love that. I love that. And, like that brings up this really important principle too. Like, at least this is how I see it. Like, yes, we are a soul living in this avatar of this body. And we also did come here to have a human experience. And so we came here to play. We came here to be curious. We came here to explore the many facets of this human existence. And yeah, sometimes we're going to fall off the path. Sometimes we're going to make decisions that aren't 100% in alignment with soul, but also like it's about giving ourselves grace and then using that information to learn and move forwards. But at the end of the day, this whole experience is so beyond ridiculous. Like, if we are not playing and laughing and being silly gooses and just exploring the many ways that we can express ourselves and our identity, then what are we even doing here?
And I see that in the maestros,
Yeah.
it's like the ceremonies can get crazy, and then at the end they're all like
Yeah.
cracking jokes. Like that's the way, like darkness comes,
Yeah,
on the other side we laugh.
100%. Smile into your bucket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like just man, and like you were saying, like you need to give yourself so much grace in this life. Like I've had moments where I was actually sitting with someone that we both know, but I'm not gonna name
Mhm,
names. And I very much respect this man,
mhm,
you know? And I was like, sometimes I just feel like I'm not where I am meant to be, you
mm,
know?
mhm,
And he was like, "Bro, you need to just chill the fuck out." You know? Like,
mm.
you're like 28. He was like, "I was still a cocaine addict at 33." You know?
Yeah,
And it's like, "Okay, wait, no, maybe you're right. Maybe we'll get there," you know? It's like so much grace.
yeah,
It's so easy to like envision in the mind what perfection looks like, and like
mhm.
you're gonna just let yourself down every time.
100%. And our mind just has all of these ideas of what it wants that are all just tied to our programs, to what we're carrying from our lineage. And there's no way our mind could ever fathom what our soul has laid out for us. And so to just give ourselves grace and allow the path to unfold while we still have playfulness and curiosity and exploration. Like that to me, like that we really came here to do that. And when we're doing this work to connect to our soul, I mean, I say I say this loosely, but there is no right or wrong choice because they're going to lead to that path of fulfillment when we're doing the work to shed the layers of distortion and illusion and connect to our soul. There's so many ways that we can find fulfillment and that we can align with our soul's path. There are so many different potentials that we can explore. And so we get to choose which we want to explore. And each of them are going to come with their own challenges, with their own wins, with their own struggles and triumphs. But we have free will choice for that reason, right? To explore.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and at least my understanding of health as well, how it's evolved,
Mm-hmm.
is spirit is the cure all.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like working with plants, but they're like getting you closer to spirit, then you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you're working with like different detox practices that are allowing more spirit to enter, then we're heading in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like spirit is the cure all, and
Mm-hmm.
spirit is like infinitely curious and joyous. Like that's where we're heading to
Mm-hmm.
some degree,
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs, but like That's the ticket, at least from my perspective right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And it also reminds me of like the word inspiration comes from in spiritus, in spirit. So inspiration comes when we are in spirit, when we are connected to spirit. And so we find inspiration to connect to soul and to express ourselves through our own unique individual creative outlets, through art, through music, through being in spirit, which brings us inspiration.
Oh, I'd never heard that before. That's
Mm.
amazing. Yeah. The etymology is so
Ugh.
cool.
Etymology is, yeah, that's a rabbit hole I will forever continue to dive down.
Hmm. Yeah, because like we've forgotten where all of this came from.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm,
we really have no idea. And there's so many, even like when you just break up words. You know, like one of my favorite ones is like responsibility.
mm,
Right?
mhm,
It's your ability to respond. And everyone walks around like it's a boulder on their back that they're trying to hold, you know, like the Greek god going up the mountain. But it's actually just, can you respond in the moment? Do you trust yourself to respond in the moment?
mhm,
Then you have responsibility.
mhm.
Done. Let it go. Put the fucking boulder down. You know?
Oh. Oh. Mhm,
Mhm. I know we've touched on it like throughout the entire call, basically. Um, but as someone who is both a guide in their own right and also has worked with a lot of the people I would consider my guides and important mentors as well,
mhm.
I'm curious what you think of the importance of finding teachers, particularly like on this path.
I think having teachers is one of the most important things on this path, whether those are plant teachers or teachers in human form. And I think both, right? Like as you shared before, so many of those teachers in human form are quite literally the reason that you've gotten to where you are today. And because we have lost touch with so much of the ancient wisdom, and like true elders are becoming few and far between in today's day and age. And so I think that's really where the plants come in. Like the plants bring that elder wisdom in. But also, I mean, we are experiencing this existence in human form. So I do also believe it's very important for us to have human teachers that can bring in the essence of humanness into the teachings. Because yes, we can learn so much profound wisdom from the plants, but to actually be able to assimilate that into our intellectual mind, into our identity, into our character, and then be able to bring that forth into the world in this human experience. I think it's very important for us to have human teachers as well. And for myself, it's just kind of a principle. Like if someone does not have their own teacher, I don't have a desire to learn from them because I think we all need teachers. There's not a single one of us who is an enlightened being who has figured out every aspect of this existence. I think we all need teachers to continuously embody the role of being a student of this path. Because how are we students if we don't have teachers?
A whole, a whole. And like the teachers, it implies like to be taught.
Hmm.
Like you still need to keep going,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Like they keep going.
Hmm.
The Shipibo down in the jungle, the really high level maestros, you know, the Mariahs, the Bunko, like they keep going.
Yeah.
They're 80 years old and they're dieting 17 trees at the same time. They only go
Mhm.
further.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and what I was sorry, I just wanted to share this one last piece, what I was talking before about the natural flow of energy too. If we want to teach, we need to be taught. So we need to be receiving information so that we can give information and put information out into the world. We need to create that natural flux, that natural channel that wants to come through us. So we need to have a teacher to be a teacher. That's at least how I see it.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah. And you get to pick,
Mhm.
you know? Thank God. Like, I know one of my teachers in particular, amazing.
Mm,
I would not be the man I am today.
mhm,
His medicine, not for everyone,
mm,
you know?
mhm. Yeah.
And that's totally okay,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I mean,
Hmm.
even some of the teachers I've had in the past, I don't agree with a lot of their teachings anymore. But their teachings at the time that I received them were integral for me to learn what I needed to learn so that I can become who I am here today.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Mhm.
Wow, this is some good medicine chats. I want to like switch gears a little bit, but it's like it's so juicy, you know?
I could talk about medicine for the rest of my life, I feel like.
I mean, that's what I intend to do with this
I
podcast.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Switching gears a little bit.
All
I'm
right.
kind of, there's just a few things I want to just dive into and get your perspective on.
Yeah.
So, one thing I'm like super into right now is coming to ayahuasca.
Mhm,
I came to learn, and then I realized to learn, I need to heal.
mhm,
And then it took me a while to work out what I actually needed to heal,
mhm,
you know?
mhm,
And this big kick I'm on right now is like deep gut healing,
mm, mhm.
deep, you know, and like the parasite cleansing and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm really curious how, as someone who has explored this yourself, like I'd love to hear the importance of these practices
Mm,
on your worldview.
mm. I mean, I could go into a massive tangent on the gut brain connection, but I'll just shelf that. Um, for me, healing my gut has been what has allowed me to connect to my soul. Because I mean, I deeply believe that just the principle of the gut brain connection, our gut health reflects in our mental health and how our mind is working. So if we have blockages or stagnancy in the gut, we're also going to have blockages and stagnancy in our mind. And a lot of this work is really unraveling all of the processes and the stories of the mind. But if we can't actually access that as clean information because there's a buildup of toxins or there's parasites or there's bacterial overload, then we're just in my experience, we're just going to continue to loop. And my gut health, it bled into everything in my life. My gut health impacted my hormones. My gut health impacted anxiety and depression. My gut health impacted my sex drive. My gut health impacted my relationships. My gut health impacted so many things. And so until I really started to address my gut health, a lot of the things that I was doing, the breath work, the meditation, and everything, it was just, I mean, it was a band aid solution, really, because I wasn't getting down to the root. And our gut is our second brain. Our gut is where we produce so many of our hormones and the chemicals that are impacting every system in the body. And so, gut health to me is such a crucial aspect of the work. It's a pillar, it's a foundation.
Hmm. And it's like everything's like energetic first and becomes
Mhm.
physical, at least from my perspective.
Absolutely.
And when we're talking about literally removing the physical waste of the
Mhm.
body, if you go, okay, now we're not doing that, or we're not doing that
Mm.
effectively, like we're holding on to this
Yeah,
waste. And this waste is just continuously circulating through the body.
yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people out there who are like potentially not in the greatest, like, mental health kind of
Mhm.
space. And I honestly think like if people cleared their guts out, there would be
Yeah.
it'd be a profound change in their
Oh,
life.
100%.
Like I would be someone who I would consider to be like a relatively healthy
Mhm.
individual, you know? And the shit that has come out of me recently is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know? Like, unbelievable. Like, literally, I know this is like kind of gross, but like, literally last week, I shit out like a 12-inch worm,
Wow.
you know? It's like, fuck.
Yeah,
That guy was just in there, just living off me.
that's wild. And also not. I mean, we also have to take into consideration, I mean, no matter how healthy we perceive that we are and how healthy we're eating and how healthy our lifestyle is, it's just inevitable in the world that we live in that we're going to take on toxins, and we can become a victim of that. We can create stories out of that. We can hyperfixate on that and create fear around that and then create all of those energies in our body. Or we can say, okay, what can I actually do to assist my body? Not because there's anything wrong with our body or because we need to fix it, but what can I do to assist my body in its detox processes that are inevitably being hindered by the toxins in our water, in the air, in the food system, like all of these things. It's just like taking radical responsibility and treating our body as a vessel. And the gut is at the root. The gut impacts every other system. And so to totally negate our gut health or to think that our gut health isn't quite literally impacting everything else is naivety.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, and like the energetically of like, not only is it the thing releasing waste, it's also the thing digesting the world, you
Mhm,
know?
mhm.
And it's like, man, you're gonna have a hard time. And I'm just
Yeah,
like starting to see my awareness like click on in like whole new ways
yeah.
by working on this. And especially like when we look at like the energetics in the body, like the like the dantians from like Chinese
Mhm,
medicine, you have like the lower dantian is like right below your belly button, you
mhm.
know, and that's like your energy reserves.
Yeah.
That's like energy that's like in ice. It's like frozen, and then it becomes chi, which is like the water that flows,
Mhm.
you know. And like if your guts are leaking, like you can't store the energy.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, when I was dealing with leaky gut and SIBO, I mean, I couldn't focus. I couldn't have an intellectual conversation. I was going through massive, massive ups and downs with my moods. It was just like everything was impacted. And then as I started to heal the gut, which had a very big energetic focus to it, it wasn't just supplements, it wasn't just detox protocols, it was actually addressing like, why is my gut leaky in the first place? Where am I lacking boundaries? Where am I not using my voice? Where am I not feeling safe and secure and thus impacting the stability of my root? Where is my sexual energy leaking, impacting my sacral center? All of these things that are impacting the gut. I had to become aware of them, or I didn't have to, but I chose to become aware of them so that I could begin to address that aspect, which became an integral part of my healing and still is. I mean, even on Dieta, like a big physical focus of Dieta for me was, at least it was felt for me, was that a lot of the physical healing that was happening was in my gut.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if it's something that people haven't looked into, like I definitely recommend it. It took me a long time to like actually land there,
Yeah.
you know, especially like being in the plant medicine, like the plant medicine being my introduction and kind of putting almost like little importance on physical things to some degree
Mhm,
because like I knew that like the emotional and the spiritual things are kind of like the cure all,
mhm,
you know, but there's like just like pretty simple things you can do to get moving. And then like you said, like at least for me, I've seen like as I've brought in physical things like binders, you know,
mhm.
the emotional things around boundaries are arising.
Yeah,
It's like I'll let it go, but like you got to let that go,
yeah,
you know. And it's like, oh, okay, okay,
yeah.
you know, we can kind of find a vibe here.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And so when we start to heal and focus on the physical ailments in our body and the things that are in disorder or just out of harmony, then it also provides a gateway for us to look into the emotional aspect and the energetic aspect. So it's just all intertwined.
Mhm. Yeah. I have a question here that I actually just asked Emily.
Mm,
Like, what would be a good question for Sarah? And she said to ask you about the sacred teacher, a single piece of gum.
a single piece of gum.
Yeah.
What?
I don't really have context for that. I think you ate a piece of gum and it became your teacher.
Oh my goodness. Oh, maybe. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, what? like what's coming up for me is I used to have when I was in university, I used to be so addicted to chewing gum, and it was like a busyness, like keeping my mind busy. And that was also um just yeah, so many things played into that. But I think perhaps I shared a story with Emily about like years later after I was no longer addicted to chewing gum and had like been going through a lot of gut healing. I chewed on one single stick of gum, and I like within like 30 minutes I looked like I was 9 months pregnant. And it was like it was absolutely insane, but I had also like so as I started to put the pieces together, I mean, I believe that because of my addiction to the gum, I developed like a hyper sensitivity to aspartame and sucralose, which are things like if I touch them at all now, and even some of the like what they claim to be more natural sweeteners, like any of the sweeteners that end in OL, so the sugar alcohols, xylitol, sorbitol, I like if I literally look at them, my gut just goes into complete disarray. Um, and so that for me, like that experience when I chewed that single piece of gum and my gut just went, absolutely, positively not. We are not going down this path again. It just brought me back to the innate wisdom of my body and how I had disregarded that for so long and ignored so much of the information that my body was bringing up for me until I literally was in a state of dis-ease, and I was like knocked on my ass. And I think sometimes like that's part of our humanness is that we wait for things to get so bad before we address them in any way, shape, or form. And so now I am just so much more in tune with my body and with all of the information that it's bringing forth to me. But for the listener, like I think this is such an integral aspect of doing this work to connect with soul and to connect with the body and to come back to spirit is we start to listen to all of the signals and all of the little pieces of information as they arise instead of waiting until we hit rock bottom, until we're in a state of dis-ease, until our mind is just so incredibly loud that we can no longer ignore it, to be able to cultivate this relationship with ourselves. And even like working with the plants does this too. Like you start to learn how to notice state changes. You start to learn how to really like the plants don't speak to you unless you're quiet. That's the whole principle of Dieta, remove the noise. And so you start to tune into the subtleties of medicines, of your body, of all the workings of the system, of everything in your inner and your external environment. And when we learn how to do that, that's when like the real healing just our healing and our growth just becomes exponential because we're tuning into all the subtleties instead of waiting for everything to just absolutely come to this precipice and the volcano to explode for us to actually go, oh wow, like there's something here that I should maybe address.
Hmm. Wow, I'm really glad I asked
Yeah.
about the gum. That was an epic
At
stream.
first I was just like, I have what, the gum, no idea what you're talking about.
Nice. Thank you, Emily. So many blessings in that woman. Oh my God.
Aw.
Unreal. Oh man, it's been so much fun talking to you.
Yeah.
What are you working on at the moment? Feel free
Mhm.
to just plug away.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I am really feeling, actually, maybe this was before we even started recording. I really feel like this chapter for me is really about going inwards again. I spent many months after Dieta getting back into the swing of things, getting back into facilitation, being of service, doing the work with and for others. And now my soul is just leading me back into a more inward phase, and I really feel like 2026 is going to bring about some really immense changes. And so for me right now, I'm just in this process of cleaning, of refining. I'm actually doing my Cambo practitioner training next week, but I'm just doing the self-service training. So like, I mean, you asked me about cleaning before. What do you do to clean and protect your energy? So this is another tool that I'm going to add to my tool belt. And I'm just doing the self application for myself first so that I can just serve myself, so I can clean, so I can develop a relationship with the medicine of Cambo before I ever go to serve it to others. But really, for me, it just keeps coming up. Like, I just keep getting this message, like, just clean, 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 clean. And so I'm just in a more inwards process right now. And I'm focusing, like, the work I am doing is more so in my one-on-one mentorship containers. It's more so in refining also my relationship with social media and technology as a whole. I do have a container that I'm working on right now that's going to be a course, a community. I mean, it feels like a movement. It feels so much bigger than just a course in a community, but it's something that actually came to me during Dieta and has just been growing and building and growing and building ever since. And so that's something that I'm feeling is probably going to be launched around January. So I will be talking about that more on my social media. But yeah, I've been in the same challenge that Emily has been devoting herself to, the Messengers challenge, which is showing up for 28 days straight on social media. And that's brought up a lot for me too about, like, how am I showing up on this platform? Why am I showing up on this platform? Am I using this device that is my phone and this tool that is social media in a way where I'm adding value to the world? I'm allowing myself to be a channel to receive and to share my medicine and my wisdom without getting caught up in the distortions, without allowing myself to become attached to it in a way where I'm seeking validation, where I'm showing up from a place of a lack of safety or from the perfectionist or from the need to be a teacher. It's allowing me to just see and open my awareness. And so that's really my focus right now, is just clean and refine. And for me, the work right now of being of service is really um in all of those. And if somebody's meant to work with me, I just trust that they're going to come into my field. I really don't feel called to advertise right now. I don't feel called to launch anything right now. I don't feel called to be pushing ceremonies. It's just I'm just being, and I'm in a state of learning how to trust my soul
Mhm.
on a much deeper level.
Mhm. Mhm. Trust. It's like you gotta just full trust, you know? Like always have enough. Always. I've always had enough, you know? And like you gotta take those crazy leaps and you gotta take those breaks. It's like it's just that's the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. Everything you're working on. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, like Cambo is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that medicine. It was such a brilliant spirit, so different than like so much of the plant medicines that people are used to working
Yeah.
with. You know, like animal spirit, it speaks very clear
Mhm.
and it speaks once.
Yeah.
So like you can't sit there and like be like, oh, is this what's coming through? Is this the intuition? Should I do this? Should I do that? It's like now.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, go, you know? And I love that about it. And that's something I use like a lot, you know, to keep myself clean. And yeah, I'm excited for you to do your training because it's
Amazing.
awesome. And also serving people is always such an adventure.
Oh,
You
I
know,
can
like
only imagine.
half the time it's super chill,
Mhm.
you know? And like people just show up, they're just like in their strength, they're like in that courage, that bravery that you need for such a masculine medicine, and they just do the thing, you know? And then the other half, they just like shit all over your living room, and you're like, fuck.
Oh my goodness. Camo is one of my favorite things to share with other people about, and to just like see the look on people's faces where they're trying to conceptualize that you've actually like invested in a ceremony where you're going to like puke and shit. They're just like to just
Uh-huh.
see.
And there's no visions.
Yeah, it's not psychedelic. There's no crazy, wild, ethereal experience. No, you're just going to clean, and that cleaning involves you purging your guts out, and there's no guarantee what orifice that's coming out of.
And I love it so much, and it like has such a deep place in my heart, and I have so much reverence for it because I was like in a pickle one time where I had a brown recluse spider
Mhm.
bite my leg, and it turns the skin necrotic. And I kind of was just like, I trust my body to heal this thing,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And like now it's like that big, this hole on my leg,
Yeah.
and it was like an inch deep. And I was like, okay, I need help. I'm in a bad spot. And I ended up going to the hospital and I got them to just reset the wound. So they basically just scraped all the dead flesh away.
Oof.
And then the next day, I just did like 7 points of Cambo. And what came out of me was just pure battery acid. And then
Oh.
after that, like super painful ceremony too. It
Mm.
almost felt like someone had like poured gasoline on me and just lit a match. And my entire body was like pins and needles to the extreme. And I didn't purge for 19 minutes. And then I finally just released
Wow.
everything. And then after that, the wound healed like with almost immediately. Within 3 days, it was like basically back to a baseline that was like
Mm.
good, and I really saw what that medicine's capable of. And it's like epic.
Medicina. Yeah, it is. The stories that I have heard of what Cambo has assisted people in healing. I have a really close girlfriend from the States who suffered with Lyme disease for years and years and years, was in so much debt from the pharmaceuticals they had her on and just suffering. And she just got a message, literally like downloaded this message, came through from spirit one day, like you need to sit with Cambo every day for the next year. And I don't know if it ended up being exactly every day, but she sat with Cambo like almost 200 times in the span of a year and basically cured herself of a disease that most doctors are like, we don't really know a whole lot about this. Like, mm, yeah, the power of the medicines of this earth is just never ceases to amaze me.
No, no. And the further I walk, the more medicines I learn about,
Mm,
you know, like the more secret ones, and it just gets cooler,
yeah.
you know? It's like this world is nothing like I thought it
Mm.
was. Nothing.
Thank goodness. It's nothing like our mind thought it was, right?
Thank God. That was some dark days back there when I was looking at everything. Fuck. Okay. Thank you so much,
Mm,
Sarah, for coming on.
thank you, Matt.
That was a really fun chat. Yeah, I really appreciate your wisdom and your insights and your capacity to share.
Mm,
Um, and everything you're working on. And
mm,
it's like really nice to walk along this path with you.
thank you.
So yeah, thank you.
Likewise, it was an honor to be here. And thank you again for the work that you're doing and for having the courage to get on this platform and share your medicine as well. It's, the world needs it. The world needs us all stepping into our gifts at this time too and listening to our soul.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. There's not a lot of things in life I'm good at, but chatting shit is definitely one of them. So I just figured I'd just lean in all the
I
way.
love it.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Just
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place. So my Instagram handle is at of sacred and soul. OFSACREDANDSOUL. That's probably the best place to get in touch with me for right now. That's where I'll be launching and talking about everything for my next course and community, which will be launched on school. And then my podcast, which honestly, like your invitation to this episode has really inspired me to get back into podcasting because for a period of time, I really was. I mean, I did go very inwards and it was necessary for me to take a step back, but I also found myself after that almost in my mind about, oh, is this too sacred to share? Should I not be sharing this? And just these realizations that have poured through recently about the whole principle of energy and just show up and share and trust that what you're meant to share in the moment is going to be exactly what is needed to be shared and to be received. And in doing so, you're just going to keep your channel open to keep receiving and keep teaching and keep being a student of this path. So, my podcast, which I will be vowing to myself to get back into recording and launching more episodes, is called the Big Little Soul Podcast. And that is found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically all the big podcast platforms.
nice. Great name for the podcast too.
Thank you.
When I first heard it, I was like, that's sick.
Thank
Like
you.
tap the fuck in. Yeah.
Thank
Awesome. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was really good. So I'll put all the links for all her stuff down below or
awesome.
wherever it should be to find it nice and easy. And yeah, that's
Well,
it. That's another one.
thank you so
All my
much. All
relations.
my relations.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy the show, don't forget to like and subscribe below. It really helps a growing channel like this out. And click up here, it'll take you to a collection of the best this podcast has to offer.